Hi, my name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED, and this is Q5 Ham Radio. Tonight I'm welcoming GW4BML, Ben Lloyd, a lifelong climber whose passion for the hills found its perfect intersection with amateur radio through summits on the air. What began at age 12 with a visit to Glenn GW0JAI's shack eventually led decades later to a full license and a 5-year family adventure blending summits, CW, and serious operating. That intersection of climbing and radio became the heartbeat of his new book, capturing the challenges, the friendships, and those unforgettable mountaintop QSOs that only happen when you carry the station on your back. From the shack to the summit, ICOM keeps hams connected. We're proud to have their support for Q5 Worldwide Ham Radio. Ben, welcome to Q5.
Yeah, no worries, Kevin. Good evening.
So Ben, tell me first about your ham radio background, if you would. How long have you been licensed, and why did you get your license?
Going back many years ago in my teens, I used to walk around my local village, and there was this gentleman there who had wires and antennas coming out of the roof of his house. So one day I decided to pay a visit. I was intrigued. So yeah, I knocked on the door and just asked what they were. I've been a young age with a bit of confidence, and he explained what it was, amateur radio. So I was always fond of CB radio, Citizen Band, and I went to the next level. So I used to go around to his quite often. He showed me the electronics, how he used to build the transceivers himself and build the antennas and put them up, and to listen to stations all over the world. And I couldn't quite believe it at first. And then he gave me the RAE, which is in the UK, the books to study. And unfortunately, then football came, and I left school, and I did not get round to taking the RAE, which was it was a shame really. But then COVID hit us in 2020 here in the UK. I found the time, the world changed, it slowed down. So yeah, I decided to study, and within a year after COVID, I got my full license, and that's how I gained my amateur radio license.
Well, it seems like a somewhat common reason, and I fall into this category also. I was licensed back 40 years ago, but relicensed because of COVID. Too many days staring at the walls. And in my case, I started doing parks on the air, getting outside, but you had the same sort of approach, correct?
Yeah, very similar. So having worked from home for a few years throughout COVID, you get quite fond to a cup of coffee, a biscuit, and a pizza in the oven, and you kind of sit there at the laptop, and you think after a few months has gone by, whoa, I need to go outside and do a little bit of walking. So I found this scheme called SOTA. A good friend of mine, Aled Williams from North Wales, right in the midst of all the hills in Snowdonia, spoke to me about. He was a friend of mine, about this scheme called SOTA. Why don't you start chasing? So I did. I started chasing from my home QTH, the base station, and then I decided to have a go at activating SOTA. So I activated a few local summits, and it got very addictive, Kevin. And I can tell you, I've been activated now for about 5 years, and I think I'm not far off 700 summits. So it's that addictive. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
So Ben, were you a climber, hiker before you got into SOTA?
Yeah, I used to enjoy a bit of climbing in my teens. Quite a lot of hiking. I was quite into hiking. Like I said at the start, I went into football. So I was a left winger in football. So I always liked my running up and down, running up and down the pitch. So I decided to try the mountains. So yeah, I have. So it was really good to find two hobbies that I enjoyed doing at the same time. Not many people can find that. So climbing up a hill, keeping fit, and actually taking my amateur radio station with me and working stations from all over the world. So it was great.
So if you've been doing it as long as you just said and climbed so many summits and activated them, I'm sure your process has evolved in that time. So why don't you start at the beginning? What were you originally taking up to the summits and using?
Yeah, this is a good question. The kitchen sink, Kevin. So like all amateurs do, I suppose, when they're new, newly licensed, I would take up to the summit with me my first portable radio was the FT817. Now I took the FT817 up. I remember I took because it had got VHF, UHF, and HF. I remember I took a little white stick, a diamond antenna up with me, which I don't know why now, because they stand about over a meter high. A seven meter pole. Again, the pole stands over a meter high when it's in your backpack. A battery, 12-volt battery, which probably weighs more than all my kit and clothing does today. And yeah, and a chair, food. So like I say, pretty much the kitchen sink. Got to the top of the hill and activated. And I do look back on myself now and think, whoa, I did carry quite a lot of weight.
I can totally relate to this. When I started doing parks in the air, I did a couple summits, not for SOTA, but just because that's where the parks were. And yeah, I was taking a pretty packed backpack with a TS480, big battery, big antenna, and it took me a long time to figure out I did not need to do that at all. But hey, it was good exercise.
It was.
So what do you use today?
So I went then on from the FT817 to the Xegu. I think that's how you pronounce it, Xegu, and I think it's the 6100, and then I managed to find myself very luckily a KX2. Very hard to come by a few years ago they were. So yeah, I purchased a second-hand KX2, and I think I've had that radio about a good 2 years now, and I tried my best to get my kit down to the bare minimum weight because of the distance I travel in a day. So sometimes I have traveled between 25, sometimes 30 miles in a day on a SOTA activating sometimes 6 peaks in a day, which is all good fun. So yeah, the weight is quite crucial to me. So it's the KX2 I use now with a little the original battery, which is a 10.8-volt battery from Ellicraft. It came with the radio, and then I purchased my another battery from RS Components, a little 11.1-volt one, and they last the day, no problems, and they weigh something like 80 grams to 100 grams. Got a little 3 meter RG174 patch lead, and then it goes to an antenna which is made by a good friend of mine, Steve. He is now GW5SAW, the SAW antenna I call it, which is a 40/20, and it does tune to 15, 12, and 10 as well. It's on a little winder. So altogether, my kit weighs quite less now, a lot less than it did back when I first started. And like I say, my clothing, and because of the distance I do in a day, the clothing and the safety are the heaviest parts of my rucksack these days.
So I'm curious, what's your primary objective? To get to the summit or to activate it? Or is it both?
Well, this is kind of so. My primary objective is to get to the summit and activate it. I'm one of those which I'm on a mission, Kevin. So you say in my head, I plan my route. It takes a while to plan everything, especially if it's new summits. And in my head is get to the summit, activate, move to the next, move to the next, move to the next. Now that's all well and good until you take your partner or wife with you, and you kind of go as a family, which some people might have read, but you go as a family, and your wife turns to you and she says, well, you didn't tell me you passed this on the way up to this summit. It's beautiful up here. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Because you're so focused on getting to the summit and activating it, you miss all these views. So, yeah, the first answer to the question is yeah, it's straight focused for the summit and to activate and move to the next. But more lately, because I've been going more as a family, I do tend to take in the views as well. That's another really good opportunity, especially when the weather's good.
Well, I need to work backwards a bit here and just tell you I admire that you do both. I mean, I just think the fact that you're out enjoying nature and getting some exercise is fantastic. And then you throw some ham radio on top of it. Ben, at what point did you decide I should be writing this down? There's a story here, and maybe even a book here.
What we do, we've got kind of like a little group. I suppose we could say that the GW, the Welsh SOTA group, and we share reports. So after every activation I do, I generally write a report, a few pictures, what the weather was like, illustrated by the pictures as well, conditions, getting to the summit, who I've worked that day, if I've worked any summit to summit contacts, what bands I've worked, and then just the journey down. And because I'm quite photogenic. I take as many pictures as I can on a good day. You can always relate back to these pictures. So I kind of had a report and images, and it was at the start written in my head. So that's where it all started.
So you're carrying a camera also, or are you using your phone?
I take my phone, and it's pretty good, pretty good.
So you're collecting these stories because you're documenting for your buddies, basically. But
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
you have a book behind you called Summit of Dreams. When did you decide that, hey, there's something more here that people might enjoy?
It all really happened when a couple of people, friends to start off with, mentioned to me about YouTube. And I've seen a few of my friends who are YouTubers going to the top of the summit and taking pictures. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of thought that's just not me because, as I said before, I'm focused on getting to the summit and doing the activating. And having to stop, put my camera down, walk past, and take everything in to show everybody, I tried it, but it just wasn't me. And then when you do this kind of stuff, Kevin, especially in really remote places, especially Scotland, because it's very remote up there, you do meet some very interesting people, people which have sometimes you don't know are they famous or not because you just stop, you talk to them, say hello, and then you just scratch your head. Who was that? Because they're very chatty and they've got a lot to say, really good stuff to say to you. And they turn around, and when you explain the hobby, what you're doing, especially with the family, they turn around and say, "Well, wow, why haven't you written a book?" And I thought, written a book, yeah, maybe one day. So that was it. And a few friends to me turned around as well, amateur friends, and they said, where you've been, the likes of St Kilda, Ailsa Crag, and I've managed to kind of go to an island, knock on a fisherman's door to get a boat to another island, to get a boat to another island, if that makes sense. Not many people have done that, really. So what I did then was I collated all my reports together over the last 4 or 5 years and started to jot things down on a piece of paper. I then related to the photos because my daughter, she's 5 now. She would have probably become a mountain goat by now. The amount of hills that she's climbed if she was licensed. She's come with me on quite a lot, and our youngest as well. And Martha's joined me on a few, and we've done quite a lot as a family. So the photos told that in my phone. So yeah, that's where it started from really, and I started to jot it down on a piece of paper by hand. Then it went to computer, and yeah, 220 pages later with 10 chapters, I was like, whoa, I've got some kind of a book here, and I think it's time to seek an editor.
So in your career, when you're not climbing mountains and writing books, are you a writer or are you doing something different?
Oh no, no, I'm not a writer. No, I work in the electronics industry. Yeah, frequency inverters that we work. I'm in sales, so I suppose marketing. That's one thing you could kind of relate to a book from sales, selling it, selling the story. But yeah, not a writer for
So did you
sure.
find that challenging to recap in a way that, suited your experience and properly reflected the experience, but also captivated a reader?
I did. I did. I found it quite hard. So, so I'd written in total, out of the 10 chapters. I think it was about 21,000 words. And I googled, and it said to hit a novel, you have to hit 50,000 words. And I was like, how am I going to hit 50,000 words? I was scratching my head. So then I seeked an editorial company, which would help me. Scott Editorial from the UK, and yep, they helped me. So they edited my work, and then what they came back to me with was probably about 100 questions on detail. Well, can you remember what happened here? Can you remember this? You need to go into more detail here. What was Lyra doing then when you were up there? And you go on, so on, so forth. You kind of get the gist. And so I was like, wow, it's like another book. So I sat there and I answered all the questions first. Then I put the text in the correct place after answering the questions. And then I read through it, changed a little bit where I needed to change it. And yeah, 47,500 words later, I was sat with my editor running through it, saying, "Thank you very much. I don't know where this has come from." And then we managed to, between the two of us, we managed to get to the 50,000 words. But it was a good 9 months, really. The process was after I'd put the 20,000 to 22,000 words on paper. It took about 9 months from there to get the book published, working on it.
Well, I also have to give you credit for being willing to be edited because I think that's a tough step for people. You sit down and you write, you commit yourself to paper, and a lot of people just don't like that idea of somebody looking over their shoulder, kind of tweaking things. And as somebody who came from the print media business, the best products were always the people that allowed themselves to be edited.
No, for sure. Yeah, no, it was challenging. It was certainly challenging, and there was some times where I thought to myself, "Oh, really? Am I going to finish this?" It was like a never-ending task type of thing. But I've got to say, and to anybody out there who's got it in mind to write a book, or if you have done anything in the past where you think, "Wow, this would make a really good book," stick at it because once you actually press that button to publish, whew, it is a good feeling. It's a good feeling.
So, what sort of responses have you gotten back about the book?
Well, so far, I've marketed it in the amateur radio audience, and I think I've sold over 200 books myself, just purely through Amazon KDP. Through UK is the highest, but USA is not far behind. Sold a lot of books in America, so thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for the support. Australia and New Zealand, and a few in Europe. And then because I've travelled around the islands since, not by purpose, but I've popped into some bookstores, local bookstores on, for example, the island of Aran, and Lewis and Harris, where I spend a lot of time on holiday, as well as SOTA, Orkney, and I've sold 5 or 6 books to each store, so that's probably mounted up to about another 60, 70 books. And a couple of weeks ago, I was very pleased, and I'd like to say that Waterstones and Foils signed a deal to stock my book in store as well as online. So they've purchased 50 books from me so far to date. So hopefully they're being shipped around the stores in the UK. So yeah, I'd have said I've sold about 300, 320 books so far.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you
So,
very much.
do you have a sense of who that audience is? Are they ham radio operators? Are they climbers? Are they just adventure seekers or people that are trying to live vicariously through you traveling through Scotland?
I think the majority so far is amateur radio, amateur radioists, so to activators as well, and some friends and family. Um, I am yet to promote it into the kind of the hiking world, should we say, and the adventurous world. That will be one of my next steps. But a little story. I was up in Aran at Christmas. We went up there twice, and I was climbing some of the high mountains up there. And I got to the top of a mountain up there, and it's quite a well-known mountain for climbing. A bit of a scramble on the top, Kirmore, it's called. And I was sat up on top activating, and I thought the sun was shining down. I'm going to sit and I'm going to actually have lunch, just have a bit of a chill as well as SOTA. So I did, and this family came up, a young family, and their dad was obviously a very experienced climber and hiker, and he was bringing his children up there as a young family, and the one lad reached the top, and yeah, I said to him, really well done. It's a good challenge to get up here. You've done really well, and we got talking, and Anyway, that was it. I did mention briefly about a book, but not a lot because he was just asking what I was doing. And then a couple of days later, I had an email from a store where I had dropped 5 books off to say, "You're not going to believe this. It's a small world." That a family came into my bookshop the other day and they noticed your book and they said, "Whoa, is this the book that the gentleman was talking about?" And yeah, they they purchased my book from there. So that was quite a nice little story, I thought, which come at the right time.
So, Ben, with this positive response you've gotten about the book, and I'm sure there'll be more to come, do you think there's a second book in the future?
Um, I'd like to say so. I finished Summit of Dreams off with an unfortunate postponed activation. So chapter 10 is when I went across to Lewis and Harris the plan was to go and activate 2 islands either side St Kilda, one called Borere and one called Soy. And the weather unfortunately said no, you're not going this time, and it's the third year it's been cancelled. So in the meantime, I have done another 3 islands, and I have to go back to Borderay and Soy. And the stacks are on my list to do as well, the sea stacks in the St Kilda area. So maybe in a year or so, Kevin, I might find a bit more time to jot down some more information on the paper.
Well, I encourage you to do that. And in the meantime, if we have listeners who would like to buy your book, what's the best way for them to do that?
Currently, the book is available all around the world on Amazon. If you just search for Summit of Dreams. So yeah, really speaking, Amazon is the place to purchase it. It is in the UK going to be available at Waterstones and Foyles as well, and also online at Foyles and Waterstones. So yeah, if you want to read about an adventure, a bit of amateur radio, and some windswept ridges as a family of 4. Yeah, please feel free to purchase Summit of Dreams for a read.
Well, after we finish this call, that's going to be the first thing I do. I'll be going to the WRTC in July, and my plan with my wife is to head up to Scotland and do some exploring. So your book is going to be on my list.
That's perfect. That's good news. That's the only really thing I'd like to have feedback from is, did it inspire people to go out there and climb a mountain? Not just do the radio aspect, but just climb a mountain. And the radio, if it's taken anybody's interest to take up SOTA, it would make me feel really, really good.
Well, Ben, I really appreciate you joining me.
No problems. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
My name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED. This has been Q5 Ham Radio. I've been talking to Ben, GW4BML. I encourage you to buy Summit of Dreams, and I encourage you to climb a mountain and take some radio gear with you. 73.